Hi, folks, and welcome to another Rio and Raw conversation. This time is not live. We went back to the, let's call it the old format. It was just an agreement between myself and the guest, but the format is the same. We're going to talk facts. We're going to discuss what's going on in the road, how to deal with the current mayhem. And this time we have a guest that went through a lot, and it seems that it's not getting any better on his end. Because as a matter of fact, we were meant to start recording this 10 minutes back, and the Houthis just started to send missiles to Israel. So that's a constant thing. As far as I see on the news, it's every day, but Shye will confirm whether how much of that is affecting the Israelis, if they are starting to live with that with some degree of confidence, or what's the general sentiment. And on top of it, Shye survived the Nova Festival, so there's a lot to be said on that regard. We want to know exactly what happened there. I think there's a lot of smoke about it, so it will be good to understand for someone who was on the field what was happening and how people react to these unexpected events that no one would foresee in the land of Israel, especially given the tight security that Israel has. So that's what we are here for the next 60 to 90 minutes. If you are interested on this, share this. This will be available, so I will keep it because I think it's a document that it's evergreen. So please share. And as you watch the conversation, if you are happy with the content, make sure to press that thumbs up. So if you haven't subscribed, last but not least, if you haven't subscribed, please do so. And just before I pass the word to Shye, I just want to say that this episode is sponsored by Travel Device. So if you are looking to go on a holiday, whether just yourself and your partner, or with the group, because that's something that they do as experts, make sure to contact the email address I put on the description. You'll get a discount code if you refer the witty discount. And they are very keen to bring you to places and show you the best of it. The team is split between Ireland, Israel, and Italy, but no harm to come up with a different itinerary. That being said, Shye, I'm very pleased to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
So I had a different kickoff for this conversation, but since you just came from the safe room, or you just you just were attacked by the Houthis. So how does it feel now?
I wasn't in the safe room. They caught me on the toilet, which is, I think, less than ideal. People here in Israel, they don't give you a schedule for the rockets. So if you're having a shower, or if you're in the toilet, or you're with your girlfriend or your wife or your family, or you're in bed, it's going to interrupt whatever you're doing.
So how does it happen? Let's say you receive an alert on the app, because you guys have an app.
So now,
then that's something to react. So what is the course of action?
So now it's a new thing. They give us a few minutes warning right when the rockets launch. They know, and they tell us a warning before the sirens go off, so we're aware that there will be sirens. And then about 3 minutes later, the sirens ring out wherever you are in Israel, if it's in your area. And then from the sirens ringing out, you have about a minute or so to get to the safe room, or the shelter, or the bunker, or just duck for cover. And then after that, you're supposed to wait between 10 and 15 minutes, because that's how long it takes for any shrapnel to reach the ground from the point it's intercepted. And then you go about your day. There's no other choice.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would sound a bit surrealistic for most people. I'm very fortunate. I've been to Israel 6 times. I haven't heard any sirens, but I think the time will come because I'm arriving in a week time on the 9th, and people already told me that's going to happen. It's out of the question that you'll be here for a week and there won't be any siren because it's just routine. How much of routine is that for Israelis these days?
The rockets and just the people
Yes,
reacting to it.
yeah, how people the way people approach it.
At least once, twice, 3 times a month now. Before it was more. It's like there's no schedule, like I said, so really we don't know. We had a rocket today, earlier. We had this one just now, so that's two today in one day, from Yemen. So they're targeting a lot of the ports and the airport. Um, but doesn't matter what they're targeting because if we strike the rocket out of the sky, then it falls onto whatever's below it, and it can still hit people. And these are not tiny rockets. These are not like the rockets from Gaza that are like 2 meters
Yeah.
long or whatever. These are rockets that are the size of school buses. And now they've begun filling them with cement to make it harder for the Iron Dome to intercept. So now you have a school bus sized rocket with fuel and it's full of cement and it doesn't really get stopped the same way by the Iron Dome because it's full of cement, you know?
So they know how the Iron Dome works. They kind of update their strategy. It's a bit like, forgive me for the analogy, because I know people who work in IT, okay, and they are on these on security. So when it comes to antivirus and all that, so they need to know the hackers that they can have the right mechanism to stop the hackers to get in the devices.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mad. But what is really mad is that the world doesn't care. This thing has been ongoing for years, if not for decades, and no one really raises their voice. Like civilians are being targeted, are being harassed, their routines are disrupted, but everyone thinks it's just normal, if not deserved.
And a lot of the other side, whatever you want to call them, people who are pro-Palestine, pro-Gaza, pro-Hamas, it doesn't really matter. It's the same people. They cheer it on and they encourage it and they
Yeah,
support it. But they don't take a second to think the rockets being fired at us from Yemen, from Gaza, from Iran, they can kill Arabs and Muslims and Palestinians too. I'm pretty sure in the Iran attack that happened a while ago and another previous attack, of all the rocket attacks in 2024, I think only 2 people died. One of them was a
yeah,
Palestinian in Jericho. The other was an Arab Israeli. So the only people they managed to kill are the people they claim to support, which is like a really sad irony.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
the
yeah.
sirens
No,
today went off, and the the sirens went off, and it was also for in the West Bank, in Hebron.
yeah, yeah, but like people don't have idea of geography, no. So they think
No,
Israel took it over 200%. They occupy every single centimeter. Israel was in Gaza during October 7. Like the
it was a
the
ceasefire.
level of exactly the level of misunderstanding is beyond imagination.
My favorite is people who say that Israel was in control of Gaza way before 2005, and I just love to think that because like Gaza used to belong to Egypt.
Yep.
It used to be them. It used to be Egyptian. What were people from Gaza called? Egyptians.
Yeah, that's simple.
One
That's
of the
simple.
most popular surnames in Gaza is an Egyptian surname. You know, so it's
Yeah.
uh, it's a little ironic.
Yeah, so it's not only that they are not experts in geography; they also lack a lot of knowledge when it comes to history, and the two together, it's not a good look for those individuals.
No, it's very upsetting because instead of doing something positive, which they have the power to do, they're just propagating hate and negativity. All these campus demonstrations and encampments and everything. Not once have I seen one that said, "Oh, we're going to do an encampment in Colombia, but we're also at the same time we're going to do a food drive for the Palestinians. We're going to collect. We have
Yeah,
a goal of 5 tons of food aid. We're going to get together and send to the Palestinians." Why don't they? They haven't.
yeah, it doesn't
You know, they
serve the
have they
cause.
have they have the power to do something really amazing and to push forwards some sort of semblance of peace. But no, they'd rather just incite hatred and violence against Jews, like we saw yesterday in Colorado.
Yeah, yeah, disgusting. Yeah. Let me go back to the time you were at the Nova Festival, just before the massacre started. So, what was your, let's say, main motive to attend the festival? Was there anything about it that you were interested in, or were you dragged by friends? I don't want to be too personal, just to
No, no,
understand
it's okay. It's okay.
how did you end up there?
So at the time, I just moved to Israel like 4 or 5 months beforehand. So I was still pretty new. Didn't have my own place. I was sleeping on my cousin's sofa, and my cousin's neighbor is one of the producers of the festival, one of the founders.
Mm.
And so he came over and he invited us collectively to go. And so we decided from that point on, we're going to go. And we got together a big group chat of like 50 people. And like the week before the festival, everybody started canceling. I can't go, I can't go, I can't go. Different excuses, different engagements, different reasons, all, very legitimate. But from 50 people we wanted to go, it became like 8, you know. And so uh, I decided to go because I figured, my cousin is going and I know he's a good time. And this girl I have a crush on is going. And I know she's fun to be around. And my other friends are going. So why not? It was my first music festival, my first rave, my first trance party, my first all of the above. It wasn't really my scene back home in Canada. So I figured why not? And if I don't want to dance, if I don't want to do the usual thing you do at this party, I brought my camera with me so I can take photos and make new friends and maybe build a little bit of a portfolio to photograph parties in the future. And so that's what I did. And we arrived at the party around 2 in the morning, like 2 hours after it began.
2 hours after it began. Yeah. What was your first memory of the festival?
Definitely approaching the festival, the drive there, seeing all the other
Mm.
cars of people driving in the same direction, and you just know in your own body, in your own head, you see these cars and it's 2 a.m. No one's driving around Israel at this time for no reason. They're all going to the same party. And we stopped at the gas station by Kfar Aza, which is the kibbutz right next to the Gaza border. And we stopped at the gas station there and got some goodies and snacks and water and drinks. And we saw a bunch of other people pull into the same gas station, all dressed for a party, and like, we know where they're going. And then we were approaching the festival ground and where the party is. And we drive up the hill, and the first thing I remember is like it's in my head is seeing the lights coming from the festival ground and hearing the bass music, which you can hear from at least 100 feet away, and
Mm.
just knowing to myself like I think I'm gonna have a good time. I think it's gonna be
Mm.
fun.
And until the attack started, how was the fun? Were you enjoying
It,
yourself?
it was great. I didn't spend too much time dancing. I'm like I said, it was my first party, and I didn't quite know how to dance at the time. I was not a big dancer, so I spent most of my time schmoozing with people, making new friends, learning who people are, where they're from, where they're going, et cetera, et cetera. You know, People offering me to come and sit with them and just talk and smoke and drink and asking to have their photo taken. Um, and I photographed like throughout the whole night from arrival to being home the next day, 54 people exactly, all with permission. I'm not just taking photos of strangers and then running away.
Yeah. So when did you first sense that something was wrong? Was there anything happening that it was, let's say, fishy?
When the attack began, it was rockets, which is not uncommon in Israel, as we just had.
Well, yeah.
But typically it's like one, two, three, five, maybe, you know, and that's it. And typically I experience rockets from Tel Aviv, where we have ample time to find shelter and to wait it out. But where we were, you have like 15 seconds, maybe less, to get to cover. And in this festival, there was no cover. We had the eucalyptus trees around us, we had the stage, we had the bar, and we had our cars, and that was it. And this was incessant rockets. If it was 1,000 rockets from Gaza, what does that mean? It means there's also 1,000 rockets from Israel, from the Iron
Mm.
Dome, being fired at the same time to intercept them. So it's 2,000 rockets, not 1,000. And Hamas on that day, I think they fired something like 8,000 rockets into the country of Israel. a lot. So what does that mean? That means 16,000 rockets were fired total from both sides. 8,000 from us, 8,000 from them. And so me and my friends, we were talking, and like we all had this sort of silent understanding that we know they're not targeting us with these rockets. When I say us, like the festival, they're not shooting rockets at a
Yeah.
festival. They're not shooting rockets at a place that's 3 miles from where they live. Doesn't make sense. That's not what they want to blow up. They want to attack the cities. They want to attack the people where everyone lives, the major infrastructure, not some patch of dirt in their backyard. So we weren't worried about being struck by rockets, but we were very worried about shrapnel falling on our head because the interceptions are happening vertical, straight above us. And it's scary because a rocket can kill you if it just falls on you. It's a huge chunk of metal, like the size of a shelf, the size of a cabinet, the size of a dresser. It's big. And so throughout the whole festival, it's just chaos. People screaming, people freaking out, and also people smiling and laughing and joking and smoking and be like, it's just rockets. No big deal, you know? And so me and my friends were like deciding, what are we going to do? We decide we'll leave, and we start packing up our stuff. And I tell them, you don't need me to pack up this stuff. It's not a lot. So I'm going to walk around, see if anybody else needs help packing up their belongings. And I figured I have the time. I'm gonna keep taking photos because why not? It's not putting me in greater danger. This is a 35 or 40-minute period of time where I will be here waiting for you no matter what because we have to pack up our stuff. So I figured I'll take photos while I'm walking around and seeing if people need help. And so that's what I did. Rockets overhead, people freaking out and screaming, and I'm walking up and down the campground area, seeing if people need help. Most people don't. Only one person accepted my offer. Everybody else is just happy and smiling, and a combination of things because they're almost all Israeli. They grew up with this.
Yeah.
Many of them lived in the South. And if you lived in the South, you're very accustomed to rockets versus, say, somebody from Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people were nonchalant about it, but I think everybody eventually took it seriously and understood that this is not something normal after the first 5, 10, 15, 50, 100 rockets. And they kept
Can
coming.
I just cut you off there? Apologies. Just want to make sure, how much time did it take from the first rocket until everyone realized it's time to react in a way that is not ordinary?
Listen, nobody knew Hamas was going to come for us.
Yeah.
There was people, myself included, who did hear gunfire off in the distance before Hamas arrived. Around 7:30, I'm walking around and I finish my film and my camera, and I head back to my friends, and I'm walking back and I hear off in the distance, I hear the sound of machine gun fire. And if you know anything about the IDF and if you know anything about Hamas, the IDF, when they're firing their weapons, I'm talking about the foot soldiers who have M16s and Tavors and M4 rifles and stuff like that. They're trained to fire semi-automatic and in a pattern, in a flow, like 1-1-2, 1-1-2, 1-1-1-1. Like they have a flow to the way they fire their guns. They're not just pulling the trigger arbitrarily. Pa, 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 pa. That's not how it operates. So you can differentiate the gunfire from an IDF and from Hamas, because Hamas are not trained soldiers. They are dudes in flip-flops and shorts with Kalashnikovs and grenades. Okay? So how do their gunfire sound? Tac, 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 just without thought. And a Kalashnikov sounds meaty. It's a chunky sound. It's not like an M16 or an M4 rifle. It's a really chunky sound. It uses a 7.62 bullet, I believe. I could be wrong. I'm not a gun guy, but I'm pretty sure.
Mm.
And whereas the IDF, their guns use 5.56, which is smaller. AK bullets are like that big. They're not tiny. They'll take a chunk out of
Yeah.
you if you get hit. So I heard off in the distance the sound of a machine gun. And like I said, it's like tack, 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 really fast. And then it faded away. And I heard nothing else. And I come to my friends and I tell them what I heard. And when I tell them, like, everyone's instantly even more on edge because some people heard it, some people didn't, and nobody was really sure about what's going on. And so at that point, we were already packed up and ready to leave. And so we made our way from our camp area to the parking lot, which was like a straight shoot because the fence was pushed over so we could walk over the fence. And we made it to our car and we started packing up. And Hamas showed up to the festival around 7:45 in the morning, 8 a.m. give or take a minute or two.
So from the moment you get on the car until Hamas was on the festival was like half an hour, from what I
Yeah.
could understand, more or less.
Hamas arrived at the exact same time we were standing next to our car. We were still loitering around our car in the parking lot, shooting the shit with people around us when Hamas showed up. But we were in the parking lot, and Hamas showed up from like the front area of the festival because we were a bonus for them. They didn't have us on their to-do list, you know.
Yeah.
They were coming from the roads, they were focused on the kibbutz, and they just happened to find us. You know, we're having a festival of 4,000 people in the desert. If you don't see us, you're going to hear us. There was a festival the day before as well, another one called Unity, in the same place. So if they didn't hear us, they heard them, and then they heard us. And if they didn't hear us, the paragliders who flew into the country saw all the lights and saw the hundreds of cars and just radioed it to their buddies, hey, go here.
So who was the first target? Was it the folks at the festival or people in the kibbutz? Or
The first people that were targeted were the Tetzpeniot, the female soldiers whose job it is to monitor the Israel-Gaza border and report suspicious behavior. Because once they took out the Tetzpeniot and they took these bases out, the IDF had no idea what was going on because they are the eyes and the ears that tell people what's happening in the Gaza envelope.
And how did they manage to kill them?
Overwhelming force. It was on Shabbat, it was on Sukkot, it was on Simchat Torah, and
Yeah.
it doesn't happen anymore. But back then, the IDF had this thing called a complete shutdown, which was on certain holidays, many IDF personnel would be allowed to go home, and Hamas knew that, and they took advantage of that. The reduced IDF presence, and these girls are not combat soldiers. They're not trained with M16s, and they have, but it's not their job. And many of them were not properly armed to defend against, 7,500 terrorists
Yeah.
armed with Kalashnikovs, RPGs, and truck-mounted 50 caliber BMGs. They had no chance.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, they took advantage. They outnumbered them. They were way more prepared. They knew what kind of people they're going to deal with, so everything was prepared. Centimeter by centimeter. It's no wonder that they attack on that. I think this has been on the pipeline for ages. They just didn't
We
decide
we
to attack Israel
we
on
just
the 7th
learned
of
that
October.
we just learned that an asset, like somebody in Gaza, a Palestinian who was giving information to the Shin Bet, our intelligence group, you can say,
Yeah,
was working for Hamas as like a double agent and purposefully giving them false information and telling them, "Oh no, nothing's being planned. It's no big deal. Don't worry about it. Nothing's gonna happen. It's just normal behavior." And we just found that out recently in the last like 2 or 3 weeks.
yeah. So you guys got on the car, and what happened afterwards?
First, we decided I'm gonna drive because I'm not a big drinker, so I was the most sober, and I'm driving us out of the festival down the dirt path towards the main road the way we came, and we make it to the main road and it's blocked by police and security because they know there's danger up there and they're trying to save lives. And there's people turning the other way down the road. And I don't want to deal with the traffic, and the police aren't letting me drive by. So I think, okay, what do I do? Coming from Toronto, Canada, and Northern Ontario, Canada, I know at least back home in fields and farms, any field, any farm you go to, if you go in one direction long enough, you will find a road, a service road, a barn, a shed, or a house, or something like that. So I thought, okay, my responsibility is to my friends. I passed all this traffic jam in the entrance, made it to the road. Road, no good, can't go left, can't go right. Screw it. I drove straight ahead into this field, thinking we'll find one of those things. And we make it maybe 35, 40 meters before we're shot at. Not us specifically, we weren't targeted, but Hamas was shooting into this field arbitrarily at everybody, just spraying, hoping to kill someone. And we knew this because my cousin's his girlfriend screamed at us bloody murder to get out of the car and to run. And that's what we did. We got out of the car and we all ran, hoping nothing would happen. And we ducked. And it was four of us out of the five of us in the car. We're a group of eight. Our other three friends in another vehicle somewhere else. We don't even know. And my cousin didn't join us. He stopped running. He went back to the car and decided, screw this, I'm not being on foot. Got back in the driver's seat and he saved us and he came back to us and he picked us up. And so the moment he was in the driver's seat, I pulled my camera back out. I pulled my phone out. I took his phone. I had Waze on one phone. I had my phone filming. I had my camera to take photos. And I just started documenting because now I'm in the passenger seat of a car. I have nothing I can do outside of help navigate. And that's it. And wait. So I figured instead of just freaking out and screaming, I'm going to take photos. I'm going to take video and document every second of this.
Hmm. Were people panicking, and how much, like in terms of?
People were losing their minds. People were freaking out. Our car was pretty silent. It's mostly the girls in the back reading the news and reading Instagram and Telegram and Twitter and Facebook and giving us updates of what's going on and getting texts from friends and trying to make sure we're not driving towards terrorists because they're in the backseat. They're even more helpless than we were. But our car was pretty quiet. You know, most of the talking is us navigating my cousin because he's not able to. He's just able to drive the car. So we drove through fields for about 45 minutes off-road in a little Mitsubishi Lancer, four-door Hot Wheels car type thing. Not a truck, not an SUV, not a Hummer, not a Jeep. It's a car. And we finally make it to a main road. We pass the city of Netivot, and we drive from Netivot towards Sderot, and then we drive to Tel Aviv. But it's only between these two cities, Netivot and Sderot, that we encounter carnage. You know, we're driving through fields. We're not seeing anything. It's fields.
Yeah.
Once we reach a road, we're seeing bodies that have pieces missing out of them, cars riddled with bullets, cars that are crashed, cars that are facing the wrong way, cars with all the doors open, looted and dead bodies in them, or blood all over the place, or you see a car here and all the doors are open and belongings are on the ground, and then you see 1, 2, 3 bodies as if they were shot running away from the car. You can tell
Mm.
someone died in motion from how their body
Yes.
is on the ground. Um, and so the whole time, I'm just telling my friends, keep your heads under the window. Because if your head is under the window, it's harder to identify who's in the car. And God forbid we're shot, less likely to die. The downside is by doing that, the IDF also couldn't identify us. And so there were instances where we had guns drawn on us and stuck in the window and stuck in the car. So I say IDF, but there was no IDF. It was police. We thought they were IDF because they're so heavily equipped with guns and their police vehicles, but there was no IDF. We didn't see any military personnel, uniform personnel. We didn't see any of that.
Yes. So I'm just trying to digest everything you just said, because it's beyond like everything I've ever experienced in my life, and the most viewers. How do you go about keeping your sanity in that context?
During the event,
Yeah, when you are on the car, say when
so I said to myself, like, I was freaking out for sure. I was losing my shit. But I said to myself, there's no point in sharing it with anybody. There's no point in freaking out on the outside. All you're going to do is stress out your cousin who's driving. You're going to stress out the girls in the back, and you're going to make everyone feel worse. So I just kept it to myself. I was losing my shit. I didn't serve in the IDF. I'm from Canada. Never been shot at. I've been in fights, but that's not the same. But, we're driving over top of dead bodies and you can hear the crunch, you know?
yeah,
So I was losing my shit, but I was focused. I'm taking these photos, purposefully not taking photos of bodies out of respect, which is like, it's a two-sided coin. It's out of respect. I didn't take photos of these bodies, but I should have for documentation, for proof, to show people what happened. But like, I thought to myself, if those were my brother or my mom, I wouldn't want to see their photo online.
yeah,
That was my reason for not taking photos of corpses. And all of the photos and all the videos I've got, only one you can see bodies. Um, and we're driving down this road that I described to you, and we pass dozens of bodies, lots of bodies, a guy with a hole in his face, and two armed men with masks and balaclavas, like balaclava masks over their faces, covered in blood, surrounded by corpses. And they're like, holy shit, this is Hamas. They look like fucking terrorists. And from October 7th, 2023 until May 15, 2024, we thought they were Hamas because they look like Hamasniks. I'll show you the photo. I have it on my phone. Pull it up, and you can show people after, but I want to show you right now because just looking at this video, you will think they are Hamasniks. But there was a news article published that said that they were not. They were actually our own special forces, Shin Bet, Shabak, and they had taken their gear from home and went out to help. But because they're Shabak, they have to have their identities secret because they're doing undercover shit. That's why they had the masks. That's why they were dressed like terrorists. So terrorists wouldn't recognize they're not terrorists, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So this is,
Can see that.
so there's 1, 2, and then this guy, you can see there's a leg and a person in the car. This guy's
Yeah.
arms are covered in blood. And then you see me. And then this is the car we were in. This is us at a checkpoint with a police officer.
Where is it?
This is taken in between Sderot and Netivot. You can see my cousin here. Like I said, he's like ducking. He's trying to keep himself small in the car. And all of us have our hands up. Because we don't know. Every time we see soldiers, every time we see police, personnel, we don't know if they're our guys or Hamas. Because we know from the past, they like to wear uniforms of our own people.
Yeah.
So me and my cousin, because we're in the front seat and we're like the de facto people in charge, because we're also the most sober, we kept having the conversation, me and my cousin. Do we stop for this checkpoint or do we hit them with the car?
Yeah, it's a tough call. And what to
And
do
like,
and what.
we really didn't want to do that because you saw the car we're in. You hit a fully grown person going 190 kilometers an hour, you might also die. You
Yes.
know, people hit deer all the time. It's no different.
Yeah. Was there a moment that you thought, yeah, there's no way that we're going to survive? This is too much. At some
When
point, we're going to be targets, and there'll be nothing on the way to
so
protect us.
on that road that I described to you, that was the road where I thought we were going to die. Every time we saw bodies or cars or anything a person could hide behind, I thought there was an ambush waiting for us. Every time we saw people or civilians or anybody who wasn't us, I thought they were terrorists waiting to ambush us. Every time we saw another civilian car driving the other way or passing us, I thought it was stolen by terrorists and hijacked as a way to disguise themselves, and they were going to pull up next to us and shoot us. You know, but I kept it all to myself. You know, and we got home to my cousin's apartment at 9:47 in the morning. We were probably some of the first people to be home safe. Many other people went to Patish or hid in the woods or went to Be'eri and went to all these other places. But we all agreed like nowhere is as safe as Tel Aviv. So that's where we're going.
At what point you realized that what happened was way way above like what you could have ever imagined?
Me and my cousin realized as we were escaping, the further away we got, the more carnage we saw, which wouldn't be the case if it was a small event. After 30 minutes of driving, you should stop seeing dead bodies. But that wasn't the case. So we realized it was big, and then we got home, and all of our friends, we had like 50 people in our apartment at one time, all of our friends and family to be with us and take care of us because we were all seriously messed up. And then we realized like this is a war. This is something huge. And so we had a therapist from day one, a friend whose mom is a psychotherapist. And day two, October 8th, I leave the apartment. Tel Aviv is dead. I drop off my photos, my film negatives to be developed because I can't do anything with them until they're developed. And then I start doing interviews and talking about it and sharing about it on October 9th, 2 days later. My first interview was published like October 10th or 11th, something like that. And I just knew like I took these photos, I took these videos. I need to show people what the hell we just experienced. People need to see. And I'm not a soldier. I've never been a soldier, never worked for the government, never gotten endorsement from the government. Don't really like the current government. So I knew, especially as a Jew from Canada who moved to Israel, my sharing about it would be received differently than an Israeli who was in the
Yes.
IDF or similar, you know. Also, I'm sharing film photos, so it's not like I can go in and Photoshop stuff very easily.
Yeah. In terms of emotions, let's say on the first on the first week or the first 2 weeks, what were the main emotions? Was it about shocking, rage,
For
anger, confusion?
I think it was a lot harder for my friends because I had just moved to the country, so I had a less of a life built there than they did. You know, didn't have as many friends, didn't have as and not the connection was different. Not less, just different. So for them, it was really hard. You know, they had a lot of friends who were killed. The girls took it especially difficult. Um, my cousin was really angry. He wanted revenge. Like when I say that, I mean like he was expressing a want for revenge as an outlet to just get his energy and negative emotions out. You know, he would never he would never do anything. Is like the most harmless person ever. Um, but yeah, he just shouting and screaming off the balcony for hours, and it was a lot of disbelief. And then as time went on, people got worse. Some of my friends didn't leave their apartments and they turned gray from a lack of sun. Um, and then, initiatives and programs and different supports popped up like right away, first week, and people started being there for each other. And I mean, I was already trying my best to be there for my friends because that made me feel better. So I know if I help them, I'm helping myself. Um, One of my friends was doing especially bad, so I stayed with her for like a few months. Also, because I didn't have a place to live, so we stayed together, so we weren't alone. Which being alone during that time is a bad idea. Even now, some people being alone isn't really good for your mental health. It can be, but when it's on your terms.
Yeah, yeah. So from the moment you got home until you start to have some, say, decent routine that somehow resembled what you were doing before, how much time did it pass? If you got there?
My life has not been the same since October 7th. I'd definitely say
Yeah.
it's been worse. Don't have a stable job. I've been couch surfing and like technically homeless for the last almost 2 years now. Um, my job was photographing concerts and events and parties and stuff, you know, and working in hospitality in a restaurant. And those are environments I don't go to anymore. Like I'll go to restaurants, but I won't sit with my back to the door, and I won't go to a restaurant if it's too busy. Won't go to a cafe if it's too loud or too busy. Um, Definitely find myself isolating more and just avoiding things I wouldn't have avoided previously. Um, it's definitely made things harder, for sure.
Hmm.
But at least I know I'm not alone in what I'm going through, and there's 2,000 other people dealing with very similar situation, and you know, doing my best,
Yeah.
keeping busy
Well, let's
with.
say, yeah.
Sorry,
Go
I
ahead.
was gonna say like I'm keeping busy with like a personal project. Um, as a photographer, I'm trying to photograph everybody who survived the Nova, and I want to do like a exhibition of a single wall covered in hundreds of faces of people who survived, because I think it's something positive that we need. I don't think we need more of talking about how terrible it was.
Yeah, 100%. I think the transition needs to happen as much as it's feasible. Of course, it's not something that we can just forget or set it aside, but in some shape or form, one needs to move on. It's our own interest to accept that a new chapter is there. Of course, we carry the the pain, the sadness, the trauma, but we need to understand there is something there for us to embrace.
I think move on is the wrong word, but move forward. Same thing, but it's
Yes.
it's more positive, you know? Moving on
Yeah.
means like, forget about it, just no. But moving forward means we keep it with us and we know what happened and
Correct.
but we don't let it stop us, you know?
Mm. Can I ask you, have you lost any friends or acquaintances in the Nova Festival?
Oh, I thought you were gonna say North America because that was a lot. Um, 2 so they weren't longtime friends, but, you know, I met 2 people in the festival who are no longer with us, who were murdered by Hamas. 26-year-old guy who my age at the time, I was 26 when it happened, who is from Eilat. His name is Dor Avitan, and he was executed by Hamas in the parking lot. I watched the video before I knew it was him. I saw it on my Telegram. I saw as he ran through the parking lot and tried diving to hide under a car, and he couldn't quite fit under the car, so he was just stuck doing this with his hands. And a Hamas terrorist who looked about the same age as us, wearing shorts and flip-flops, carrying a Kalashnikov, walked up to him and emptied his Kalashnikov into the back of his head. And then the other person who was murdered, who I made friends with, his camp was set up next to ours. So from 6:30 in the morning when the rockets began to when we left, we were talking to him and learning about him and making friends with him. And he, you know, he gave us an invitation to his place for a Shabbat dinner. You know, like one of those open invitations you get from people you meet. "Hey, come join my family for dinner," that sort of thing. And his name was Rand Schaefer, and he was 48 from Kibbutz Be'eri, and he was murdered with about 15 other people in the bar area. Um, and you know, I didn't know them before the Nova, didn't grow up with them, wasn't best friends with them, but I took the last photo of these guys ever, smiling, and that was very difficult for me. You know, to have to find their families, find who they were, and then say to them, "Hey, you don't know me, but I took the last photo of your husband or your son alive. Here you go." So I printed off these images and framed them, and I gave them to the families and the parents and the spouses and anybody, and that was very difficult for me.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine like how you can approach those families and say here's something for you, which is uh, it's a positive gesture, even the situation. But you would like to approach these families with different news. Here is a photo I took, and
He's
I'm
still
happy
alive.
to see them again. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. No, it was
yeah,
very that's one of the few times I cried when I learned they were killed, when I met their families, when I gave them the photos. You know, when I talk about them sometimes, like those are the only things that really make me emotional because it's very hard. You know, these are like really amazing, sweet people who they're a whole universe, and all I could give their family was a picture, you know.
yeah. In terms of, sorry if I'm going too personal on this, but
That's okay.
if I'm going too personal, you just stop me. That's fine. You know, I have no issue. Like in terms of trauma, like what most people suffer after an even massacre of that magnitude, it's nightmares. Because I mean, we all know that nightmares can be tricky because it's not in our control. Like you are just sleeping, and you are exposing to all sorts of anxiety triggers, fears, all sorts of ghosts and demons. Is it something that you've experienced yourself? And if you did, or if you do, what's the best way to tackle them?
So I don't have dreams. I just eliminated that altogether with smoking a lot of cannabis. If you smoke cannabis, you often don't dream, so that's not a problem for me. But I do hear things. Sometimes I'll hear screaming or gunfire or explosions, and it's not actually there. And so that's pretty hard to deal with because it makes me jumpy and paranoid and stressed out and on edge. Like I bought a Fitbit, like a smartwatch, so that
Yeah,
I can see when my heart rate's going up because of this and address it before it becomes a full-blown panic attack or similar.
yeah. In terms of support, let's say from the community, from the public institutions, are you satisfied with the level of assistance you have been provided with?
Um, a
So,
lot of
so
fighting. It's a lot of fighting. You have to prove a lot. You have to tell the government you have to basically prove to the government why you deserve support and why you think you need help. And then they have to decide whether you actually need it or not and give you a percentage of disability based on your everything. But there's a lot of different organizations and programs that have popped up to help out. Like there's one organization called SELAH, SELAH, and they do a lot to help out people who are, Nova survivors or victims of terror, whether it's financially or through therapy, or food stamps and vouchers, and ways to take care of themselves or just supplement for a period. There's also the Jewish Agency. They'll reimburse you some money for your rent if you're short on rent. They'll reimburse you, so they'll cover maybe like 2 months rent. You pay it up front, but they'll give you the money back. Or maybe you want to buy a bicycle, they'll buy a bicycle for you, stuff like that. Nothing crazy big, no one's going to pay your rent for the next 10 years, but enough to alleviate some of the struggles that many people face now. A lot of Nova survivors face being unhoused. Maybe somebody used to work in a restaurant like myself, and now they can't go back to that environment, and that was their only career for a while. How do they transition to something else? Now they have no income, and you know, um,
Especially,
lots of
sorry to
different.
cut you off, especially because I think most of you were young. Like most
The
of the
youngest
crowd,
person
I would
there
say they
was
were in the
17, and the
20s.
oldest person there was 75. That's a lot of young people,
Yeah,
20, 19, 18, 23, 25, but it's not like it's a bunch of college students. There's really successful people there. There was lawyers, there was doctors, there was, high tech moguls, there was people who run nonprofits and startups. It was like a crazy range of people, really awesome people, like everybody, seriously amazing. Even now, like, you see a lot of people. We're in group chats and WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups, and like everybody's there for each other. Everybody's doing something. Nova survivors have started their own initiatives to help each other and volunteer and just do like really amazing stuff to be there when there's sometimes no one else.
can you imagine an upcoming edition of the Nova Festival, say, in the next couple of years? I wouldn't say in the same land, in the same
I
territory,
don't
but
know.
somewhere else in Israel.
I don't know, because now, like the people who did the Nova Festival, the Nova was one of their lines of parties. They have like a series of parties, different themes and names. The Nova was one of them. I don't know off the top of my head if there has already been one, because we have had quite a few parties happening since then. Like not really early. I'd say people began to go back to their lives in a reduced capacity in like March 2024. So, like the Nova Foundation has thrown, events. Um, I don't know if there's been another Novas Festival. I don't know if there's going to be another one. I personally, like, this is my own opinion, my own belief, just because of the association with it, it's possible they might not do another one, leave it at that.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm really not sure. I can't say I'd go. Not because I wouldn't want to, but because now with all the media around it and that trans has been exposed to more people, it'll be a lot more people than 4,000. And I don't want to be at such a large party. I wouldn't even go to a party with 4,000 people now. Maybe I'll
Mm.
go to something with like 500, 300, 200. Even that's a lot to me. That's overwhelming to me. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say in this tricky circumstance of ours where there is so much hate and so much questioning of what Israel is doing, what makes sense, what's the right way to respond to Gaza. And I know that from my interactions with Israel, which are almost daily, there is a huge split on what's the right course of action, in terms of military military mission, diplomacy, if any. What's the so where does Israel should stand going forward? So just moving on from the Nova Festival, how would you describe the general sentiment in Israel when it comes to where the country should sit going forward?
I think everybody, like most of the country, at least 90% of the country, wants an end to the war and just wants the hostages home. Like most people couldn't give a shit about the war continuing. Everybody that I know personally just wants the hostages home and for the rockets to stop. That's it. Most people don't give a fuck about Gaza. They don't want to live there. They don't want it to be part of Israel. They don't even want association with it. You know, nobody's really in favor of their friends being called to the army to go die. You know, the sooner we get the hostages home, the sooner we can go back to October 6th.
Yeah, and you think that's possible, like to get the hostage back without any compromise on Israeli side?
You know, I think compromise is a good thing. You know what compromise is? Compromise is when nobody's happy. You know, no one's
Yeah.
going to get what they want. Israel's not going to get what they want. The hostages aren't going to get what they want. Hamas isn't going to get what they want. No one's going to get exactly what they want. We're going to have to compromise. And what does that mean? All of the millions of people who live from the top to the bottom of Israel, including the Gazans and the Palestinians and everyone else, no one's going to be happy with whatever the result of the end of this war is. Whether it's the hostages back in a Palestinian state, whether it's there's no hostages left, they kill them all, whatever the outcome is, whatever happens, some percentage of the people within Israel and outside of Israel are going to be unhappy and say, this is no fair, it should have been this.
Yeah, that's for sure. Like the outcome of the October 7th will be a loss for every single party involved. No one is going to finish this situation with a trophy in their hands and a smile in their face. That's not going to happen. It's too complex for someone to claim a victory. Some people might be happier than others, but that's it. There's no such thing as I finished this whole shitty situation as the champion. That's not going to happen.
No, there's not going to be a winner. And if it was something we could resolve easily, it wouldn't be going on for 77 years.
Yeah, 100%. In terms of the road reaction, like my understanding of the chronology that October 7 happened, I think Israel had what I would call a grace period of 24, maybe 48 hours, where people were not calling out the country. They say, "Okay, we are with you guys. Our heart is hurt. We cannot imagine what's going on inside of our families. Our solidarity is with you guys to 200%." And I don't know if I was naive or not, but I thought that at least Israel could conquer a fraction of the road public, and maybe they did, but I think it was very little. I would expect that, I don't know, a larger percentage of the population would be more in favor of Israel, or at least would understand the struggles and the drama
For
that you
sure.
guys experience every day, just like the rockets. But it seems that it was totally forgotten.
Yeah, it's really frustrating, you know. People, it's really interesting, especially after Russia and Ukraine's war began, 4 years prior or whatever, you know. The same people who support Hamas, support Ukraine and condemn Russia, but also support Hamas and condemn Israel, but also condemn Iran, who supports Hamas and helps Russia. You know, it's really weird. It's super backwards, and they make Israel out to be this weird, racist ethno state, which is it's so far from the truth. Like my ID card has Arabic on it. If this was an apartheid, why would they bother putting Arabic on an ID card?
Yeah.
Right? Why would I broke my leg recently, my femur. So I'm not going to walk for a little while. With the crutches, I can walk. But my physiotherapist is a Arab Muslim woman. If this was an apartheid, that wouldn't be the case. You know, my doctor, my surgeon was an Arab Muslim man in the largest hospital in Israel. That doesn't exist in any other Arab country. There's no Jewish doctors in Iran. There's no Jewish physiotherapists in Gaza. There's no Jewish nurses in Syria. In Israel, there's everything. And not to mention the fact that, now it's June, it's Pride Month. Where's the Gaza Pride Parade? It doesn't exist. I went to New York. I spoke to a lot of protesters and demonstrators, lots of the LGBTQ community, super in favor of Gaza, not knowing that they'd be shot and lynched and strung up by their feet just for how they exist. Whereas Israel brings in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of Palestinians from the West Bank, from Judea and Samaria, from Gaza, who seek refuge from persecution. They're gay, they're bisexual, they're queer, they're non-binary, they're transgender, whatever. They are rescued by the Israeli government and brought from these places to Israel and given safety and have their identities hidden. Because even though they're in Israel, we have people in the country who are Arab, Muslim, or from other places who still don't agree with that thing and who will still wish to cause them harm. That's why, since the beginning of this war, you don't see any of them speaking out, because many of them still have family in Gaza or in the West Bank. Or people here know them and they don't want to be outed to these people because they're still Muslim and they're still Arab and their lives can still be at risk. You hear about in North America and in Europe, people who come from Muslim families from the Middle East being chased and hunted by their relatives to be killed because of their choices. And this is something that happens outside of the Middle East. But in Israel, we make an effort to try and help these people. And the same people in the West who value these sort of things condemn us. It's
Yeah,
I have no words.
It's a paradox. It's a complete paradox. They should examine their own perception of Israel and the human values as such, because the two don't get together. If you stand for human rights, like the other day I was asked, how come you stand for Israel? And my answer was, because I'm all about three things: democracy, human rights, and free speech. So I think Israel champions that as an oasis in the Middle East. If it has they have their own faults and flaws.
For sure. We've had protests, before the war, we had protests for 32 weeks against the current government. Protests that are big, not 5,000 person protests. I'm talking 500,000 to 1 million people protests consistently for 32 weeks. Even in America, even in France, they don't do that. What other country in the world protests for over 32 weeks their government? 500,000 people, 1 million people consistently. I've never seen it anywhere else. So it really makes me laugh when I see people in North America saying, oh, every Israeli is just as bad as their government, which is the farthest thing from the truth. I would say anywhere you go in Tel Aviv or any major city, you'll find, at least within arm's reach or within eyesight, most of the people you see don't agree with the current government or don't agree with the way the war is being handled. Yeah, you have radicals. Yeah, you have ministers in the government who are insane and say let's colonize Gaza and let's move back in. But thankfully, they don't have the control or the ability to do that, and they're just insane people expressing themselves.
Yeah, that's something I also highlight to people here in Europe. When they listen to those psychopaths, just take them as psychopaths. Psychopaths, they exist everywhere. They are not
and every job.
They are not a representative. They are just some isolated individuals who say crazy shit, and then you see that everywhere. Just get out your house and you see someone talking on the street.
Listen, Trump is president. I don't think every American is like Trump just because he's president. Just because he says grab him like the pussy, I don't think every American thinks that way as well. I don't think every American is like RFK Jr. telling people to only eat grass and to eat raw liver. Our elected officials are elected officials, and if we don't like them, then what happens? They get removed, and they don't get voted a second time.
Yeah. Now, I'm finding interesting that I can see that you are not much in favor of Likud, Trump, which is usually seen as people who are supporting Israel. You are on the other side of the fence. So how do you go about being...
I consider myself more moderate. I'm too left for the right, and I'm too right for the left.
Oh, yeah. I heard that. I heard that myself. I'm the same. Like you are stoned from both sides. Like myself, like for instance, I'm usually seen as more leaning towards the right, but I'm in favor of abortion, and they don't accept that. But I'm not going to do group thinking. I go on individual case. So I
For
evaluate
sure.
the situation. I make an assessment. I might get it right. I might get it wrong. But I'm not going to be libertarian or conservative or
And
progressive
even
just because.
so, that's your belief and that's your vote. And
Yeah,
then that's all you can do.
yeah, yeah. Just exercising your own uh, freedom of thinking, and then, as I said, like I can come to proper conclusions. I can miss the picture, but that's part of being alive. And the other
Yeah,
thing that I haven't said that in camera, but I think it's about time. Like I'm going to Israel next week as we record this, because it's going to be displayed maybe when I'll be in Israel already. And I understand that people don't agree, as I just said, with some of the Israel government actions, but that shouldn't allow them to question my trip to Israel. It's my free time. It's my
for sure.
holiday. I do whatever I want with my time.
For sure.
They don't have the right to say where do I go and with whom. It's my own decision. It's my business. And what I don't like it is these people, like, again, they call themselves progressive, that you can do whatever you want, you can be whatever you are. So if I decide to pack and travel to Ben Gurion, that's my personal decision. That's it. And wherever I do that,
And I
it's my
think
business.
everybody should come to Israel. Everybody who gives a fuck about what's happening in this area
Yes.
should visit once. You don't have to like Israel to come visit. You can call it Palestine. It doesn't matter. It's the same place. And you know what happens when you come and visit? You go to Jerusalem, or you go here, or you go there, and you see rocks older than Islam that have menorahs engraved on it. If you go to the Temple Mount, underneath it is the Second Temple. It's a Jewish temple under the Temple Mount. If you go to the north, to the Galilee, you see Roman aqueducts. There's everything here. There's history everywhere you look, and you can see for yourself what it's like here. You can see it's not an apartheid. You can see it's not an ethno state. Japan's more of an ethno state than Israel. Ethno state means it's mostly one
Big
ethnicity,
time.
right?
Yeah.
We have everybody here. We have Filipinos, Eritreans, Sudanese, Haitians,
Hi.
Israeli Jews, Israeli Arabs, people from. Uh, there's Palestinians who live here. I used to work with a Palestinian.
Yeah.
It's or the Palestinians who didn't leave after Israel's independence, like many Arab nations told them to, stayed and got citizenship.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's everybody here. We have Indians, we have Koreans, we have every nationality. It's not like it's, it's not like you're visiting Sweden or something.
Yeah. No. The people have no clue, because I think one of the things that puts them off is the propaganda on the media,
TikTok.
on TikTok. Yeah, and that's another thing.
Wow, I made
They
a new
understand
TikTok account.
Israel through TikTok. I
I
go
made a new
there.
TikTok account just out of curiosity.
Yeah.
I gave it like an Arab name and just like Muhammad or something because I want to. I've never used TikTok, and I want to see what people who get radicalized see. So I gave it like an Arab name. I put, nothing on the profile, and I just started following a bunch of Middle East commentators, not pro one side, not just Middle East commentators. And then within like 10 minutes, I'm getting like videos saying Israel has to be destroyed, Zionists have to be destroyed, we have to eliminate the nation, we have to free Palestine by any means necessary, calls to action, blood libels. It's insane. And then we get situations like in Colorado and Washington, D.C. A month ago, Washington, D.C., two people assumed to be Jews murdered outside the Jewish Museum, outside of an event meant to talk about how to help the Palestinians. That was the event they were murdered at. One of them, a German born Christian who later moved to Israel, but a German born Christian, and his soon to be wife, who he was going to propose to and marry, who was an American Jew. But their killer didn't know anything about them. He saw two people outside the Jewish museum, thought them to be Jews, and murdered them. And when he saw they weren't dead, he reloaded his gun, walked up to the people crawling away and executed them. And what happened? People in the museum, the Jews who were there, thought he was a victim and went out to help him and give him water and consoled him and helped him out, because that's what we do. We look out for people. We look out for each other. You know, all throughout history, the Jews have been there for everybody in their community. We marched with the Black community. We supported the Koreans. We supported the Japanese. Some of the first schools in North America that allowed Black students to be with white students were built by Jews. You know, we went to support Mandela, Martin Luther King. It's really insane. You know, there's only 15.5 million Jews on Earth. I think less than half, I think it's like 40% live in Israel. The rest are all about. And, you know, it's not a big population. We're a minority. I look like a normal person, but we're a minority. There's not many of us. There's no such thing as Jewphobia. Not enough of us for you to be scared of. But, you know, somehow people see that we're the big bad oppressor here to
And
take over.
why is that? Where do you think is the root of
I'll tell you where I
anti-Semitism?
think it's. I'll
Because
tell you.
it's not
Well,
new. It's
the
been
root of anti-Semitism is our existence. We're here. People keep trying to kill us for 3,000 years, and they keep doing a bad job. We keep winning, so they have a long time grudge. But I think modern day, I ask you a question as my answer. How many TV shows or books or movies or comics or novels or plays or musicals or anything, any form of media, new or old, how much of it have you ever read or watched or seen or listened to that presented Jews as a minority, that didn't have anything to do with the Holocaust? And Fiddler on the Roof doesn't count. Have you
I don't
ever
know.
seen or read any sort of media that didn't present Jews as celebrities, millionaires, doctors, lawyers, presidents, moguls, you know, successful? You know, I've never seen. I don't think it exists. I've never seen or read any piece of pop culture or current media that talks about the Farhud, or talks about the Spanish Inquisition, or talks about why there's no more Jews in Yemen. We're always presented in media as rich and successful and doing better than everyone else and stepping on others around us.
And most important, evil. It's not just that the Jews are doing well and they are an example of someone you should look up and learn. It's like they are there because they did something behind the scenes, and it's not just
they
them.
can't be successful because they must have screwed somebody else over to get where they are now.
Yes, yeah. There's no like
I
tap
think
on Jews' back.
I think that is, it's not the reason we have this anti-Semitism, but I think it's a very large contributor, especially for younger generations who don't read as much. You know, they learn through YouTube, through opinion videos. You know, their education is watching a video on TikTok of a guy talking about what he read, but then they don't go and read the thing he claims to have read for themselves. Because if they did, they'd realize he cherry picked a paragraph, and the next paragraph says, "Oh, but."
Yeah, and the other thing is people these days are not open to talk to others who are on the field. They want to learn through screens. I find so annoying that when I talk to someone who is cursing on Israel, and I can see by their
Online.
words that everything is, it's online. Everything that they are saying is online based. TikTok,
Yeah.
Instagram,
Or you can see
YouTube,
they copy
you
paste
name it.
ChatGPT, because I know a lot of people
Or
will
that.
argue on Instagram and Twitter, and they won't actually argue with you. What
Yes.
they'll do is they'll see a tweet they
Yes.
disagree with, they'll take a screenshot of it, they'll put it in ChatGPT, and then they'll direct ChatGPT how to respond on their behalf. So what
Yes.
happens? It's two AI arguing against each other because the guy
Yeah.
who posted it is probably doing the same thing.
Yeah, and it's all, as you said, it's all online related. So they came up with all this argument made out of things they saw on the internet and maybe some on the TV. And then they talk to someone like myself. Okay, I haven't lived in Israel, but I tell them I've been there 6 times. Maybe I have the license to tell something about it. And I talk to people based in Israel almost every day. So why not listening to me? I think I have some. The same way
I,
that say like here in Ireland, like I know if you are familiar with the Troubles, which was the clash between the Irish and the British. If I talk to an Irish person about the Troubles, I'm not going to lecture them because I saw 2 documentaries on YouTube. I have
For sure.
respect. I have
You don't know what
respect.
you're talking.
Like
You don't
I
know as
might
much as
approach
someone who
them.
lives there.
Yeah, I might say a couple of sentences, but I have to be cautious with my words because they have experienced that themselves, or if not them, their parents. So I'm not going to tell them what was the what was going on between themselves and the British for decades if all I know is TikTok or YouTube based. So be
But
humble. That's what I say. Be humble.
humble is wow, not enough people.
Yeah.
But now, it's to a point where people are so confident in what they think they just refuse to listen now. They think I found it's since Trump had his first term, this is more a common thing.
Yes.
I think it mostly originated in the West. Um, a lot of people nowadays on both sides, left wing, right wing, in the middle, unaffiliated, whatever you want to call yourself. Many people, and I know this because I've traveled from November 5th, 2023 till March that just passed, hundreds of flights and spoken to hundreds of communities and met thousands of people. When you question somebody's opinion or understanding of something, or you propose an alternative possibility, or you express a dislike for something that they are in favor of, they take it as a personal attack on them as a human being.
Yeah.
You, Vitor, if you tell me that you love, I don't know, Trump. I know you don't. It's a hypothetical. Let's say you love Trump, and I say, Trump said some stupid shit. He said some really dumb stuff that he cannot come back from, and it's on video. People will get offended on Trump's behalf, like you just
Yes.
pissed in
Yeah.
my face. And it's like that for everything, not just Trump. It's for the Palestinians, for Yemen, for Iran, for China, for Korea, for Russia, for Ukraine, for America, for Canada, for the West, for the right, for the left, for the right. It's a personal offense to question my belief, apparently. If somebody says
Yeah.
to me, Shye, I don't agree with you, or Shye, I think you're wrong, it's not going to make me angry. I'm going to
Yeah.
say, okay, tell me why you think I'm wrong, and then I'll explain my reasoning, and let's see if we can come to an understanding where we're in the middle.
Yeah.
That's how I think things should be done. It's not the only way. There's lots of ways,
Yeah.
but that's how I like to operate.
Yeah. No. Look. Yeah, I know he's a very polarized figure, like Andrew Tate. There are a few things I like them. There are a few things I hate. So that's
For
like
sure.
with every celebrity. But he said one thing that is spot on, and he was warning people. So if you are, and the warning was more or less like this, if I recall it well, because it was a while ago. He said something like, if you are listening to a public figure and your blood is boiling and you cannot go to sleep that same night because of what that person said about whatever, that person is not the problem, is you. You haven't met that public figure. Why are you that triggered by Trump, by Biden, by Tate, by Netanyahu? It doesn't make sense. If you haven't met a person in life, how can you not be able to go to sleep after listening to whatever shit they said? It's absolute nonsense. If you tell that to our parents, they will just laugh at us because they have other things to deal with. I think it's a 21st century issue because most people will just switch off the TV and say fuck it.
Okay. But now, it's not like when I grew up, when if you wanted to know something, you could only know it if you read a newspaper, a book, or watch the news on TV, specifically, Channel 24, Channel 25, whatever. Once you leave the house, you don't have access to any of that. But now we have a constant 24/7 flow
Yes.
of every little fart that people think. And so now what happens? There was the GHF, the Gaza humanitarian, whatever, the new relief that's going on in Gaza. They give, instead of the white bags from UNRWA, they give like boxes full of aid. So there was this thing, it says IDF tanks fire on crowd in this new place. And all the news articles go crazy saying IDF kills Gazans getting aid. Ah. And then the agency publishes security camera footage. And what do you see? You
Yeah.
see
So that.
Hamasniks with Kalashnikovs shooting civilians, getting aid. And now they're requesting that part of the ceasefire deal is this aid agency pulls out of Gaza. Why? Why are they asking them to pull out of Gaza? Ah, I know, because they don't have the ability to steal from them like they were stealing from the previous aid, because this is guarded by a private security. And they're not happy with it because now the Hamasniks can't steal food, and the Palestinians raided their warehouses where they're hoarding food, and now they're going hungry. So
Yeah,
now maybe there's famine, but it's only for the Hamasniks.
it's crazy. And in
And
the meantime, all the mainstream media have reported that Israel, the IDF have killed, I don't remember the number, 30, 40, 50 people.
I saw it was
They have
45 as of today.
45, yeah. So they were so they know they were wrong, and I haven't seen, to my best knowledge, not even one agency, BBC, CNN, the RT here in
Oh,
Ireland,
of course not. Why would they?
apologizing for their own mistake. And that's just what professionals do. I provided you with wrong information as a
Accountability.
journalist.
They hold themselves accountable.
Yes, I mess up. For the sake of my own career, I'm going to put myself out there and say, yeah, I was not right with my numbers. I was not right with the aggressor. But here I am telling you that I got it wrong, and I will keep an eye next time.
Like,
That's simple. That's journalism ethics.
for sure. And, especially with like the amount of dead, it's always news articles that say, oh, information from a stringer in Gaza. A stringer is like somebody
Yes.
who's in the place who reports to the agency what they see. But many of these stringers are Hamas terrorists. And then many of the information comes from the Hamas run Ministry of Health, which is what the BBC puts as the. And listen, I don't think there's any question that there's people who don't deserve to die dying in Gaza. For sure. Happens in any war. 700,000, almost a million, 700,000 innocent French civilians died in World War II in Allied bombing against the Nazis. That wasn't ethnic cleansing. That wasn't genocide. It was unfortunate, but it's what happens when there's a war in a civilized, populated area. And so, you know, it's. Oh, I lost my train of thought. 1 second. Maybe this is one of the things you can cut out. Um, ah, like, listen, without a doubt, people who don't deserve to die are dying in Gaza, for sure. It's unavoidable. But listen, after October 7th, and I'm talking about in the Nova, where it was just eucalyptus trees and the stage, and that's it, and mostly dirt. No rubble, no collapsed buildings, no debris, dirt and eucalyptus trees. Took them like 2 weeks to collect all the bodies from people who were in the Nova. And that was only 411 people, just from the Nova. 411 people took 2 weeks to collect, and that is with a functioning government and organizations and volunteers to come and help in an environment that's not a war zone. But nobody questions the fact that in Gaza, when a building collapses, they can give you a same day 500 people killed. And 9/11, it took them like 2 months to count the people. And that's in 2 collapsed buildings. 2 months it took them to count the bodies, to account for all the dead. But nobody thinks twice about the people who perpetrated the war reporting figures of those dead the day whatever bombing happens. No one questions it. Do I think nobody's dying in Gaza? No. Do I think that there's 100,000 dead now? Definitely not. The population of the Gazans was, I think, 300,000 in 73, 350,000, a little more than a quarter million. In the West Bank, I believe it was around 600,000, 700,000. Now the West Bank has a population of 3.5 million Palestinians, and Gaza has a population of 2.5 million Palestinians. And Israel, which is not giving a census to the Gaza and the West Bank, has a population of, I think, like around 9 million, give or take. And 20% of that 9 million is Arab Israeli Jews, Arab Israelis. So just on those numbers alone, the genocide theme doesn't fit. Because we saw genocide in Rwanda, in Germany, in parts of Asia, parts of Europe,
Cambodia. Yeah.
Cambodia, Ken, and we know what genocide looks like.
Yeah.
There's a definition of it. It's the intent to eliminate a population based on who they are. If that was the case, there would be zero aid in Gaza. And if I drive to the south, which I do often, I wouldn't be able to see lines of trucks at the border crossing, waiting to bring in aid. They're not there just for show. These truck drivers didn't decide to wake up in the day and go sit in these trucks to make the world think that there's aid going in. It's not actually going in. These organizations and these international communities who are trying to bring aid to Gazans aren't faking it to cover up a genocide. You know, it's like the 2016 election. People said, or before people said, "Oh, Biden stole the election." Like, what? The whole United States government, every single U.S. official conspired against Trump to steal the election? No, he just lost, and he's upset about it. Doesn't make what happened and what is not that. You know, it doesn't make reality different. And you know, it's just an unfortunate situation for everybody involved. Everybody's suffering. You know, no one's a winner. The soldiers are losing. The Israeli population's losing. The Gazans are losing. Nobody's gonna come out of this with a net positive. All Hamas did on October 6th, on October 7th, was set us back 35 years. Any progress we made towards peace, gone. Maybe in 10 years from October 6th, they could have had a Palestinian state somewhere or in some capacity. But I feel like now that's like way farther off. I'm not saying it's not possible.
Which sorry to cut you off, which is not their interest. They don't want to have a Palestinian state.
No,
because the moment, let's imagine the Palestinian state is made official, I don't know, next week. Of course it won't, but let's say next week. They won't be receiving funds anymore. So all those millions of dollars they were being offered by the UN, by the EU, by
how
the
does
US.
Hamas make money? How does
They'll be
Hamas
gone.
make money? How does
Of course, like
Hamas
that.
make their money? Hamas makes their money by facilitating the suffering of Palestinians. Because if the Palestinians don't suffer, the international community won't come to their rescue and give them money and give them aid. What happens when the Palestinians are allowed to live and flourish and have reasons not to die? Well, people are going to stop donating. People are going to
Bad
stop
news for
sending
Hamas.
money.
Yeah.
And the Hamas leaders, who we killed, but whoever's in charge now, won't be able to line their pockets with this aid. You know, by keeping the Palestinians in a state of perpetual suffering, of perpetual victimhood, through means of war and violence, and through means of lack of education that isn't revolving around terror and propagation of this, they ensure their investment. They're making sure their source of income is safe. But the moment the Palestinians are able to live properly and not have to worry about tunnels being built under their house and bombs being stored in their mosques, well, that's bad news for Hamas because that's their source of income.
Yeah, and if it's not being evil, I don't know what is that. I think that's the definition of evil with every single syllable. So I think Hamas is making a favor to people who want to understand the concept of evil. If they don't need to grab a dictionary, just look at Hamas actions. They are embodying what evil is. So if people want to learn some new words for their own vocabulary, here it is. If they want to know mathematics, just outline the genocide. Just look at the figures of the Palestine population. If you want to understand the situation in detail between Israel and not only Hamas but all the neighbor countries, look at the geography and history. And unfortunately, those 3-4 subjects are not something that people master these days. But Anyway, this was not meant to be a podcast about history, geography, and mathematics. Maybe we have to hold a separate seminar on that, or someone will. So I want to thank you, Shye. Just to come to a closure, I want to thank you for your testimonial here. It was very impactful. Hard to digest at times, and we are not used to listen such drama experienced by someone who can just be seated with us on the coffee shop tomorrow. It's not just you switch on Netflix and you see a movie production. This is real stuff that needs to be taken like that. This is something that a tangible individual experienced when he was not meant to, and this needs to stop. And I want to highlight again that we had to kick off this episode with 10 minutes of delay, not because I might to start 10 minutes late, but I'd rather tell you, I rather prefer you telling me, sorry, I was just smoking and I forgot it, and then 10 minutes late. So I hope next time that's the excuse instead of the rockets. You tell me I was just smoking something.
Okay. I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity to be on your podcast and to share. It means a lot to me.
So best of luck, Shye. I look forward to be over in Israel very soon. I hope you can recover
Thank you.
quick from the. I know it's very annoying to be injured, not be able to be out and about.
It's just the fact that I can't leave when I want to. I have to have a friend push me out in a wheelchair. Like the crutches, I can walk maybe 100 meters max, but if I want to go anywhere like a cafe, I gotta have someone push me on my wheelchair.
Yeah, well, I hope it's just a short period. So for those who watch us, I encourage you to press those three buttons below. If you haven't subscribed, it would be great if you can do that. If you are satisfied with the level of the content provided in this channel, make sure to award us with a thumbs up. And if you know someone who's into these sorts of conversations, no filters, no BS, make sure to share. And also, if you want to travel, sorry, just to say this, want to travel, make sure to contact Travel Device. Shye, your last.
I just wanted to ask if anybody wants to see my photos that I took at the Nova Festival. You can see on my Instagram, which is just my name on the screen, Shye Klein, or my website, which is also just my name, shyeKlein.com. And you can see all of my photos, all my videos. You can read my story. You can send me an email. I'd be happy to talk about it more. And yeah,
and I'll put that in the description. That's in case people, for some reason, struggle, they can just get on the YouTube description, copy and paste, and there won't be any obstacles. So, Shye, thank you very much, and all the best, and keep in touch.
Thank you. I hope you have a great rest of your night.
Cheers, man.
Bye.